Hey everybody, this is Brian here. We're going to be talking about music in the modern world as it is today. This isn't going to be, some history lesson or some diving back into my favorite songs from 40 years ago. We're going to be talking about the way things have kind of really hit a wall today, and there's not much going on. It's kind of a AAA team at best, to use a phrase that I think it was Daniel Tosh who originally said in one of his comedy specials. There's no talent on that team. It's a AAA club at best in terms of music nowadays. He was originally talking about something else, I think. Um, anyways, yeah. So I think that music needs a burst of new life. Everything's grown stagnant. For instance, progressive rock is something that we could make more of to fix this problem, because it introduces new cultural styles of music, and it also introduces new types of instruments regularly into more familiar genres such as rock, blues, or jazz. Um, Recall in the 60s and 70s that songs such as Paint It Black by Rolling Stones or Do It Again by Steely Dan, very famous songs that received a ton of radio airplay. Um, I think that even those songs, uh, they actually expanded things beyond the restriction of something the size of a Tic Tac box, And that's what music today is kind of become enclosed in, this sort of self imprisoning commercial shallowness. Um, Anyways, though, music back then incorporated different types of instrument beyond the guitar, bass, or drums. However, nowadays I feel like music is lucky to even have any instruments in it anymore at all, because it's all the computerized things, the digitalized things, auto-tuned voices that sound like, frankly, something that would come out of your iPhone. I feel like there's not much going on there that's actually not just uh, something that's like, I think that actually, you could probably credit Windows or Apple with the music today more than any of the actual human singers. Um, Anyways, yeah, so there's no longer any talent there that's really required to get to number one on the charts. All the songs sound, uh, about as organically performed as a telemarketer robocall, and the new music has been ruined by digital editing. When I started playing guitar about 12 years ago, I was inspired by musicians like Jimi Hendrix, Django Reinhardt, Eric Clapton, and Carlos Santana. And though I didn't know his name at the time, the dude from Blue Oyster Cult also is, some of my favorite songs were from them as a kid. Anyways, however, I feel as though nowadays I may as well just listen to Google Translate or Alexa reread Facebook posts, because it's about as shallow as what I'd hear on the radio. Um, Artists that are dominating the charts and the radio right now are facsimiles of real music, in my opinion. Everything has been polished down and made more robotic. If music really is love, and if love is all that matters, if there's some higher power beyond our comprehension akin to a non anthropomorphic God, music really is our staircase to spiritual ascension. So we may as well take it for what it is, a vital tool for exercise, self expression, socialization, and spirituality. And I think that we've taken it and we've made it just basically a commercial tool for advertising and for selling videos on MTV that really, frankly, just have women shaking their ass and they have men bragging about how good they are. And it's like, that's really innovative. We need more of that, don't we? Um, so frankly, in that kind of mold of those songs that I just mentioned right there, lyrics have also degenerated like a pile of old pink slime at the foot of a ragged vulture's nest. Every song is in the format of some unrequited love relationship song, or some self-deprecation thing where people are talking about how they're not going to be good enough until somebody comes and saves them, or I can't stop thinking about you, so the rest of my life I'm just going to bear this cross. And I don't know if people consider that romantic, like some sort of martyrdom, like after the relationship they just have to be depressed their whole life and wait for someone else to make them happy. Why can't people ever actually look within themselves and see what they have to offer as people, not just wait for somebody to actually saved them. I think that that sort of external reliance, I think it makes people a little bit weaker as human beings because they can't bear these sorts of things on their own. Tragedy, that is. They can't bear tragedy without having to have a shoulder to lean on. And sometimes those shoulders aren't reliable, and you can't always count on them to actually be there to lean on when you need them. So why not actually be able to stand up on your own and not have music in our culture that's self-deprecating and tells you that, uh, you know, I'm never gonna dance again. That's a good example of a song that I'm talking about, and I love that song. And George Michael kicks ass, but I'm just saying that, that song tells you, I'm never gonna dance again the way I danced with you. It's not a realistic message to send the kids, I think, in our music anymore. That, love is something that can only happen once, and after it's happened that one time, it can never happen again. Is that supposed to make people feel more secure in their relationships if they're already in one, that they can't ever have another one, so that means that this one logically must last forever? Well, that's not the way life works, and I think that music and films need to stop telling us that false message of romanticized marriages and relationships when it doesn't always work out that one directionally, and no reference to the band, obviously. But it doesn't always have such a single direction route. So I think that lyrics have been dumbed down greatly since the millennium. And also, the dumbing down of lyrics is a great part of why people today are being codependent and waiting for their knight in shining armor. This is the type of external reliance taught in music that has a terrible side effect of making people think they are never good enough. Um, Anyways, so moving on to other elements of what I'm thinking about music today, we need to remove our greatest art form from this rut before we lose it. Lest we leave pop music kind of dangling in the noose of techno bullcrap and radio pop. Ever since the probably the boy band movement in the late 90s, I think that, and since the millennium, we've had things like Britney Spears and 50 Cent and Kanye West and NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys, and just all of these. None of these bands are going to be memorable in 20 years. They're all going to be like, damn, did people ever really listen to that? It's going to be like when you look back into the 80s and you see photos of people with really funny pompadours, and their shirts have those shoulder pads that are really, really spiky. I think that it's going to be one of those things where we're going to look back on this current music that we're promoting today, and we're going to think, what the fuck were we thinking? Anyways, that said, here are 10 ways that I think that we can look through the rich catalog of music history and help it recover. Number one is to legalize auto-tune. I think that they should take this out of studios and take this out of the art form once and for all. And you can say that that might be against the singer's rights or something, but I think that it would be overall probably for the greater good of the art form of music as a whole, and we could take care of those shallow, like Miley Cyrus, Justin Bieber level pop songs on the radio. And it might sound like I'm really biased here, and like I'm just some crusty old rock fan that's talking about what used to be popular before I was even born. But I think that I'm not just being angry here about in terms of how things have changed. I think that this stuff really has gotten a lot shallower. And I think that if we legalize auto tune and stop making the music sound like robotic bullshit, might actually add a little bit more of the emotion that we used to see in singers like Whitney Houston or like Laura Nyro, or like even people who weren't as technical like Neil Young or Townes Van Zandt. Those are people who brought a tremendous amount of emotion and feeling to their music. Just I think that you could really take it as an olive branch to kind of reach out and get how they felt, and feel it too yourself. It was kind of like a way to spiritually feel the mirror image of what you were listening to. Anyways, but today's music doesn't have that ability to project its feelings because there really aren't any beyond, oh girl, woohoo, oh girl, woohoo, insert swear word, insert I want to fuck you. It's just like, what is that really teaching anyone? What is the lesson? What is the moral? What is the greater meaning of this? What does this innovator accomplish or pioneer in music? This is just it's really just, I think, running in place in the mud, and it's really not accomplishing anything for the art form. And that makes me sad as someone who's been into music for their whole life, even before I started to play it. It's something that I've always felt defined defined the sadder days in my life and made me have something to listen to that put me mentally and emotionally above those things. Like, I always thought Tupac was one of those people who made me feel better when I was sad as a kid. Like when I was at the bus stop, for example. When you're at the bus stop and it's raining, that's a good example of kind of the type of thing. I mean, you have something to listen to on your headphones that makes you think, man, there's something else out there in the world beyond my scenario. I should have something to feel better about. That's not just my own self-centered crap. Um, anyways, yeah, I think that something we could do as a society. This is something not just for the music industry, not just like a legalizing auto tune was, but I think that we could, frankly, as a society, stop supporting the types of music that are totally vacuous. They could be sponsored by Oryx, for God's sake. Such pop songs about fucking people, bragging and cannibalizing redone concepts that have already been uh, dug up and buried 20 times in music history, and so they're just really, really repetitive, sterile, commercialized, redundant crap, and it's non-innovative. Is non-innovative a word? It's not innovative. How about I say that? Anyways, another thing that I think we could do for the future is to get better music courses um, in public schools, so the next generation won't be empty of the technical knowledge of music, kind of like this one seems to have been. My guitar teacher demonstrated this problem of how we don't have enough infrastructure in terms of musical education in our country. My guitar teacher in high school was an algebra major, and he had the musical soul and spirit and ability to teach of an algebra major, which is not saying much. And so, not many people who didn't already know how to play guitar walked out of there with much much knowledge. Um, Really, he didn't teach anyone anything. I think there was one other kid besides me. I had been playing for like 2 years at that point. This kid was way better than me. His name was like James or something. He looked like Mr. Van Driesen from Beavis and Butthead in terms of having long blonde hair. A dude from America maybe is another good example. Anyways, sorry, I'm rambling here, but I think that schools across the country are losing funding for art and music programs so that they can pump all their money into superfluous lessons that most people won't use in their daily lives. I think it would be nice to improve our musical education program nationwide. And another thing that we should do is to bring back CDs. And frankly, I think get rid of paid music streaming. I think that why should people pay to rent a song or an album when they can just pay to own it once? Why pay to basically have that in your hands like a hot potato basically, and then have to give it back? That doesn't make sense. In my opinion, that's illogical, and it makes much more sense to actually own the album for once and for all. And it makes sense why, from a business standpoint, they'd want you to keep having to pay for the same thing over and over again, watch ads while you're doing it, and have to pay some monthly subscription to. But it's a non-secure way of having a collection or a personal library of music. Have you ever had your computer crash and lost like your entire folder of songs? That is the type of thing that 10 years ago you would have put on your iPod when we still had them. Anyways, I've lost many musical libraries in such a sudden manner, and it sucks. And so it kind of shows you why having an actual physical medium, like even back when we were at records or cassettes. I think that CDs are what we should go back to uh, when we digitalize things. But I think that CDs are probably the best type of way. But it's a much more secure way to actually listen to music without having to worry about losing it constantly, which is really, I think, something that they just want you to have to buy the same thing twice. It's a business perspective. It's a business model way of listening to music. And why are we buying into that? That's stupid. Um, Anyways, I think that we should also bring back some old school instruments that we've seen underrepresented in the last several decades. I propose the complete defenestration. Throw out the window things like electric keyboard and computers in the studio that they use for editing and auto tune. We need things that were real instruments, real organic instruments like this upright bass and violin and the actual grand piano and things like that were more exotic, like the 12-string guitar, the sitar, or you know, the that type of guitar, the one that has the metal plate over the hole, and it's like the one Leadbelly used. Oh fuck, I don't know why I'm not remembering that. I should. Sorry, I had a seizure earlier. Anyways, we should get to the next thing on here, which is number 6, um, which is that we need to have, I think, music history education taught in schools. There's a cultural element to music beyond just teaching kids and teens to read it. Why not teach millennials about artists that they never otherwise would have a chance to hear about in many cases? Learning about artists that aren't played nearly enough today, like Fats Waller, Sister Rosetta Tharpe, the Sonics, Harold Garner, Art Tatum. Um, Heck, Tupac and Biggie Smalls were now 25 years ago. Can you believe that? That's ridiculous. And NWA was like 35 years ago. That doesn't. I can't believe that. Anyways, but yeah, other people like Art Tatum and Carl Perkins, who was frankly always overshadowed by Elvis or Buddy Holly. Um, I recall taking a Spanish history class in middle school, and I thought it was a beautiful opportunity to have the doors opened for both the culture and the language instead of just, learning hola como estas and that kind of level of thing. I learned about what actually happened, to people in Mexico before, um, before just that kind of period of the 1800s to now that they actually always teach us about repeatedly. They can't somehow teach us about stuff before that for some reason. Um, Anyways, so yeah. Another thing I think they should do is add concerts to the destinations that they more frequently take kids to in field trips, so that students can learn firsthand and not just see old paintings and dilapidated buildings. This would, needless to say, require some consideration of the artist and of the crowd that those artists attract. You're going to want to take sixth graders to a Pantera concert, though. Anyways, they end up getting in the middle of a mosh pit. But yeah, some consideration to avoid bad crowds or secondhand smoke, drugs, alcohol, whatever. But still, if the schools found a safe concert, it would be a great lesson to the kids to actually see the music firsthand and not just see it on YouTube or see it on, hear it on the radio. Um, I think that it would be a much better way to actually have our kids learn about music, and also our college students too. Um, we have people who are growing up and wanting to major in music, and there's not really a sufficient program at a lot of schools to do that. There's stuff for science and there's stuff for math. There's stuff for psychology or medicine, but there's never anything really for the arts or for music that's sufficient, because I think that people consider it something you can't make as much money off of, which is, I think, bullshit. Anyways, yeah, we should also bring back TV antennas and increase the variety of FM radio stations. Not every family has Comcast, AT&T, or TiVo or whatever. Increasing the funding and the donations to public access and radio would be a tremendous resource to grant people who aren't able to go to Walmart and buy a stereo or sign a contract with those snake oil salesmen. I think that even though musicians have a right to earn money off their work, the industry has frankly become as overly commercialized as sports. I doubt people like Lady Gaga, Justin Timberlake, or Bieber are in any risk of poverty between their royalties, ticket sales, and recording contracts. So I think that there should be some sort of free music available on things like YouTube without them having to make us pay YouTube Premium or watch ads on Pandora. These people have a million different ways that money is coming into them, and they're not going to be sitting out on the curb like Tyrone Bigham smoking crack if they don't get ad royalties from one thing on a fucking Mad TV sketch posted 12 years ago that I watched the other day. Do they really need something for that? Do they need to advertise to us constantly? Do we need to be acting like we need to be charged for listening to music and made to watch these crap advertisements? I think, frankly, it's a snake oil salesman's greedy trick, a cheap trick. Not the band either. Several times I've referenced a band, yeah. But anyways, I think that there should be more sharing of the love. And if music is love, then share the music. Don't make everyone constantly pay for it or have to figuratively pay for it by watching a bunch of manipulative, stupid, materialistic ads about shit they don't need, making them waste their money on crap that's frankly not necessary, and it pollutes the art form. Anyways, yeah, sorry about that thump there a second ago. Let's get to number 10 on here, which is I think that we should have I think that we should frankly have some sort of public effort to rescue music from this obscene pit toilet of stagnation that we've left it in. As a society, we've kicked it down there since the boy band movement in the late 90s. And I think that there's so much left in there beyond that corn. Um, anyways, I love you guys because you're you. Thank you for watching. And this is all just my opinion. So if you're a fan of techno or house music, or if you're someone who loved the Britney Spears and boy band movement, whatever, it's your opinion. You're allowed to think that way. I can have intelligent discussions or allow people to feel different ways. It's not something. I'm not one of those people who insists that other people have to feel the way I do. God knows we have enough of those people in the world today who need everyone else to constantly agree with them because they're narcissistic douches. But I hope I'm not being that way to you guys today. I hope I've left you some room to feel whatever way you want, or respond in the comments on the things that I've opinionated on music today. But yeah, just remember, these are all opinions, and the top 10 list and everything else that I introduced on here. I'm glad that. So thank you guys for watching. I gotta go now. Bye.